all together.
So we just watched Lost Ladies, aka LAAPATAA Ladies. And so this video that you're watching now is both our non-spoiler review and our review that'll be attached to our reaction of the movie. I can say, without a shadow of a doubt, it's quite kidney touching.
Kidney touching?
You never heard that?
No. What is that?
It's something I saw a couple times where it's like, instead of saying it's heart touching, it's kidney touching. I don't know what it means exactly. Like sarcasm, dialogue, kidney touching. So anyway, they'll get it. You won't.
Okay.
I'm more Indian than you, apparently.
Sure, yeah, you are, definitely.
So, let's just have a quick summary of the film, I suppose. A young guy is married to a young girl, and he has this tradition that he followed at some location, and then he's got to take a train back home, but it's a long ride. Along the way, he uses the restroom, comes back, there's a mix-up, he takes the wrong bride off the train with him, and his actual bride ends up at some other location. It's a story about him trying to get back to her, this bride who ended up with him. We don't know what she's about. She's up to something. We're not quite sure. His young bride, who's at some other station, is also trying to figure out how to get back to him. It's got a great cast of actors who I have not seen before, and I think that's by design because all newer actors are relatively unknown.
Yeah, I think you're right. That is by design because I totally believe them as the characters. They did such a fantastic job. I thoroughly bought into this story that takes place in these small villages in India. We learned a lot about culture, about like their specific culture as we were watching it. It was just so delightful, just so heartwarming seeing the relationships between the different characters and also the growth that these characters experience throughout the course of the story.
We did learn things because as long as we have been watching Indian films or Asian films in general, there were things being explored in the story where I was like, why is that a problem? I don't understand why that would necessarily be an issue to do. And to be totally honest, I still don't fully get it because they never quite spelled it out other than it's a rule. You know, it's a cultural thing that you're not supposed to do.
Well, not only that, like the story takes place in 2001. So it's like over 20 years ago.
That's true.
You know, I don't know how much has changed as far as attitudes and whatnot go in villages. I felt like this movie was a very sweet and heart-touching movie. It's got like a really nice sort of like female-centric feminist message as well, but I don't feel like it's really hitting you over the head too hard with it.
I didn't really look at it as like any sort of feminist propaganda. I just looked at it as these characters went through this thing, and that's why this character's talking about this thing and her own experiences, and she's trying to impart knowledge based on things that she has gone through. It's not necessarily like an agenda that the film has. It's just part of that character's experiences.
Right. I just feel like it's just trying to show, especially for maybe an audience that lives in a small town or village, like there are other options for you out there. You should and you can go after your dreams.
Yeah, going back to the thing that you mentioned earlier, I think that while the casting here is all unknowns, I actually really enjoyed all the performances, much for the same reason that you had mentioned. I liken it to a film called United 93, as I understand had mostly unknowns, and so it allowed you to kind of buy into the reality of it a lot more easily. It almost felt like a documentary in a way. And so it got to the point where I was watching the movie going, did this actually happen? You know, I legitimately was asking myself that because the characters, flaws and all, it felt very real, the moves that they were making in the story. Sometimes to my frustration, because I was like, well, just clearly wouldn't you do this or you know, some of the characters weren't doing the smartest moves. But I will say that by the end of the story, I was kind of championing everybody, you know, including the characters that I wasn't expecting to. There were arcs that took place during the course of this movie where I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm actually liking this person now. The film misleads you by setting up certain things. I'm trying to be vague as possible so that I can encourage you guys to watch the movie. It does a very good job with having character arcs in the story. It's just that like my main dude in the story, I was getting very frustrated with him because he wasn't doing moves that I felt like were logical or asking questions that I felt like were logical. It seemed like he was just kind of going in circles the entire film. And I'm like, dude, come on. Outside of that, you were part of this company of people for like 2 hours and it was cool. It was fun to hang out with them, you know?
Yeah, and you really cared about the characters. Like you really wanted things to work out for them. We spent time with them and they were really sweet. They were fun and they were funny. You're right. At times it was incredibly frustrating, some of the moves that were pulled. But I think it just lent to just the overall feel of the movie as a whole.
There were two characters that stood out to me in particular, or I should say actors. The actor who played the cop and the actress who played the older lady who ran the stall. It was just very, very layered. Not that anyone else did a bad job. Everyone did a great job in this movie.
Yeah.
But those two in particular just showed me layers I wasn't expecting to see during the course of the story. In particular, I guess if I had to rank someone at the very top, it would be the lady who runs the stall, because she has a very like hardened exterior, but like there's stuff explored with her where I was like, oh my gosh, like she's touching me, like the way, like her performance.
The movie kind of gives you enough that you as an audience member can kind of piece her backstory together, even though maybe the movie doesn't actually tell you beat for beat exactly what happened to her to make her the person that she is, but like we get it. And I think that's really great storytelling and also really great acting on the part of the actress, because she knew that whole backstory, and as a result, we all felt that with her.
One of the things that's explored here that you kind of touched on earlier was the notion of like pursuing your dreams and being allowed the opportunity and freedom to pursue your dreams. This is not the first movie to explore that idea or that topic by a stretch. For some reason, every time we go back to that topic, it does feel fresh in a way, because it's still this ongoing issue that a lot of people experience where they want to do something with their life. And I've experienced this as a kid as well. You're trying to go on a particular path that you know is right for you, but you're being stifled or inhibited by your parents who are like, you should do this right here. This is the thing you're supposed to do. And it's like, I know what I want though, like clear as day, like this is what's for me, and you're trying to put me on this thing over here, which is not right. And I'm glad that they talk about that. I think that's an important message. It's probably more crucial in India than it is over here.
Right.
Because over here, you're raised on the belief that maybe you could become president someday.
Exactly.
Whereas in India, you have people who end up on this path to be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, because that's the trifecta of career opportunities.
In this film, I think also it's looking at the role of a woman and how she functions within society. I imagine that this is probably more prevalent back in the early 2000s and before that than now, but maybe that's still the case, where it's like, oh, as a woman, your main function is to get married and become a wife. And after you become a wife, then you become a mother. And there's all this preparation that goes into training a young girl for that role. All she becomes is that role. That is her whole identity. And she forgets who she is, who she was, what her desires, what her dreams were, and all of that. So I think it like gives a nice reminder of like, hey, you're an individual as well. You have your own needs and desires, and you are valuable in your own right as a person. I
just remembered that part of the advertisement campaign for this was championing, I guess, feminism to a certain degree, or women, like it was for Women's Day or something. I think that came up, like this is a very like,
it is a very female-centric movie. It's like, it's feel good, because it's just talking about, women just doing stuff and making it happen.
Okay, so I think it's important to state, outside of our main guy, they didn't make all the men in the movie bad. In fact, the main guy himself is actually a really good dude.
He's a really good dude. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, because often what happens here is that you make the men completely inept, completely stupid, and the women are just Mary Sue's. They're untouchable. They're invincible. And that's definitely not the case here. What I like about this, that we aren't doing over here necessarily in the States, is that while it has a feminist perspective on things, or a feminist hope, shall we say, it's not putting down men necessarily in the effort to illustrate these ideas.
Right.
And I think that's really important. There is a dude in this movie who's bad, but like, so what? Just like,
there's bad dudes out there in the world, as there are bad women out there in the world.
Precisely. Overall, I really liked the film. I thought it was quite nice. It touched me, and it had a nice message to it. I do feel like it could have been shorter. It felt like there were things that lingered in the film that, like, you could have chopped that fat off, and this could have been 90 minutes, and it would have been the same exact movie. But it still, touched me. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it was really sweet. I really enjoyed it. Like, if you're in the mood for something that is uplifting, that is sweet, that is fun, that has a happy ending, and good music.
Thought-provoking as well. Yeah,
I really like the music as well. I thought the music was great. But all of those things, if you're just looking for something that's going to uplift you and make you feel good, I would choose this film.
You guys, thanks so much for hanging out. I'm Jabby Kuwait. This is
Achara Kirk.
Peace out.